Hey everybody, here's hoping you had a great first few days of the new year 2025, even with all the chaos in New Orleans and Las Vegas and along I-85 in Carolina late in the week last week. The road shut down for hours after a driver's apparently idle bomb threat that, well, just couldn't be ignored, of course, by the trooper who stopped him. Weather too, all across the northern tier of the country, so stay safe. Stay as warm as you can as this winter season settles in for a long run itself. I'm Todd Dills, your host for this first edition of Overdrive Radio for the new year, and when in November I talked to the small fleet owner we'll hear from today, he was looking ahead to warmer temps himself, about to spend a few days on a cruise.
We're going to port out of New Orleans, and it goes to Roatan, Honduras, Belize, and then Costa Maya and Cozumel, Mexico.
A working cruise, as it were, as you'll hear, for small fleet owner Josh Rickards with his Rickards Transportation Services business headquartered in Renton, Washington, though he calls South Carolina home these days. The business, in something of a growth mode, bringing on leased owner-operators to specialize in part in the entertainment industry, sporting concert tours, and often enough working in tandem with larger entities with larger tours, occasionally fully supporting smaller efforts as well. What's Josh Rickards looking forward to for the new year? He just bought a brand new 2025 Western Star you'll hear him talk about in this Overdrive Radio episode for January 6th, 2025, and he's bringing on 2 more owner-operators as he continues on the goal of sustainable growth. As he told me last week, it's not just about growing in numbers, he said. Anybody with good credit can buy a truck. For Rickards, his laser focus is on what he calls the real challenge, maintaining that growth while staying profitable.
I have an office out in Renton, Washington, and that is, of course, that is like the headquarters for the company. And I do have a house out in South Carolina. We predominantly, everybody's an owner-operator that's leased on. And so you got guys just in different areas. And we're really like kind of over the country. We got one of our drivers is down in Florida and near Orlando, and that's a really hot spot for the entertainment. And then you also got another gentleman that's over in Cartersville, Georgia. Another that's actually out in Washington. He's not far from the headquarters. And then you have a gentleman that's down in Phoenix, Arizona. And we do got a new driver coming on board that's like not too far from Vegas, and that's something where I've been like, wanting to find somebody that's kind of close to that area. Then you kind of have your bases covered there, and then of course I'm over here in South Carolina where 3 hours from Atlanta, 2 hours from Charlotte. Being in, these are all big hotspots, not just for freight, but on the entertainment side. It is a different world. We're starting to hit that growth mode, but at a point, at a pace. There's no set pace. It's interesting because I got asked this question when I actually did that DAT video.
Find a link to the DAT promotional video showcasing Rickards that he notes there in the show notes for the podcast. Likewise in the post that houses it at overdriveonline.com/overdrive-radio. The question Rickards was asked?
Did make the video. There was a part in the video where I said, it's really important to create opportunities for people, right? So the question didn't make it, but the question to them was like, what is success to you? How many trucks is success to you? And to me, there was no number on it. It could be, you could be 1 truck and very successful. You could be 5 trucks and very successful. So for me, I was like, well, and that's where I went to answer the question, which was, I think it's more about the opportunities that you create for people, right? So, the environment and the structure that has been built with Rickards Transportation Services is, I'm not getting rich by bringing on guys. Like, far from that. It is a percentage base, but it's such a low percentage. It's more about like, there's these avenues for the guys who are leased on to really, financially flourish, right? And it's one of those things where I don't necessarily have, even for small fleets, I have a very low turnover. And it's more about like these opportunities that are created for these guys that like the fleet consists of people that really enjoy doing the entertainment. So we specialize in that niche. So it's basically a group of guys that get to do what we love to do, but also, make good money doing it and be able to keep up on our equipment, and be able to also keep up with the image and the branding. The name has my last name in it, and it was just something, because when I started this, it wasn't about growing a bunch of trucks, but so I don't go off too much down the road here.
Right.
We got guys in different areas, and and it's just one of those things where we are in that growth mode. So I think next year, I think there's going to be a few more coming on.
You'll find his fleet at the company website, rickardsinc.com. That's RICKARDS Inc.com, where he promotes those same values and goals of creating opportunity, of sustainable growth, and with the principal focus on entertainment hauling, building a true team, and when he's partnered with bigger entities on those larger scale tours, being that integral part of the team that is any touring production.
But in the entertainment side, when a bigger touring outfit brings on trucks that are not, that aren't their company trucks, when you're on that,
right.
We're wearing their t-shirts. It's more of like relationships, and you're called in, and that really breaks down what we do. We really are like I try to put it out there, and this is crazy. Right? I'm gonna go hardcore and say this. We put ourselves out there as like the Navy SEALs, the Marines of touring, right? So it's like when we're a smaller outfit, but when you call us in, you're getting the special forces that are coming in, right? So that it's a way that we brand it. It's
Sure.
fun,
Rickards' journey to success as a small fleet owner starts way, way back in his boyhood with a particular mentor and an owner-operator he's long been happy to call his uncle in Michael Paul Visbeek, out of Northern California and since passed on. On the other side of a break, Rickards tells the tale of a young man's inspiration taken in a Kenworth W9 with a cat and an 18-speed, then detouring through music promotion and marketing and on to true trucking success. Keep tuned.
If you're in an area that's going to get a dose of winter, you need to protect your diesel with Howe's Diesel Treat starting today. When used at every fill-up, Diesel Treat is guaranteed to prevent gelling, remove water, and add lubricity, making sure your truck or tractor is ready to go and performing its best. And if you face crazy cold temps, make sure you have a safety net. Howe's Diesel Lifeline. Keep it on hand for gelling or icing emergencies. It's a lifesaver that's sure to get you up and running in 15 minutes or less.
Find more information about all of Howe's fuel treatments at HOWES, Howe'sProducts.com. Here's Rickards, detailing the man who first put the trucking bug way down in his bones, as it were.
His name's Uncle Mike, right? But he was not my blood uncle, right? But this is one of those things just like this was like a family friend. So, but he definitely he earned the term and the name uncle, right? And so like you have in some families and that culture and different cultures, it's like there's people that are referred to as an uncle, but they're not by blood definition an uncle. So Uncle Mike had a W900, and this is over in like Northern California area, and I went on a ride with him. He had an 18 speed W900, and I'm like somewhere between 10 and 12, somewhere in that range. Maybe actually I'd say between maybe more broad than that, 8 to 12. Pretty young. I don't remember the exact year as far as like what age I was, but I know I was down in that age. And I kept asking my mom, I was like, yeah, I want to go ride with Uncle Mike. And so she talked to him, and of course he's like, yeah, okay, Josh wants to come, you can come out with me. Trying to figure out when it was best. And I went out with him on some day trips, right? Or we're not, didn't really do like of the overnights or go like long haul with him. And when I rode with him, it's so wild because he was like, all right, well, we're gonna go through the gears. You're not just if you wanted to be in this truck, you like trucks, right? So it was no secret there. And so I was learning how to go the high low and how to split gears and all that. And I did say this in that video, and this is the one thing that's like, yeah, when you hear that turbo spool up, especially on them, the motors they had back then, he had a cat in that, and hearing that turbo spool up and everything, I was like, yep, Yep. I love this. Yeah. And then of course, so I knew from that age, I was like, oh yeah, I'm gonna drive trucks. Whatever I do, it's gonna be, I'm gonna be connected somehow. I didn't know at that time, like, because I look at a kid, you just look at the truck. You don't pay
Yeah.
too much attention to trailers. So to me, I didn't care what wagon I was pulling with it. It's like
Right, right.
tanker, bull hauler, whatever, drive in reaper. I just know that it's going to be one of these tugging it. I always had a passion in the music side, and it really stems to like I actually started off in the very beginning promoting music, just like
Okay.
going around passing flyers out. And there was an artist that that I can mention, Tech Nine. I started and I wasn't even 18 at this point. I was like 16, 17. I was going around passing out flyers and promoting his music and, getting like free tickets to the concert. But I really, I didn't do it specifically for that. It was one of those
Right.
things like at that time I was like, man, I supported that artist. I'm like, man, I'll buy tickets to this concert. But I just really, I was over in Portland, Oregon. And I was thinking, a lot of more people should know about who this guy is. This is Tech Nine's from
No.
Kansas City. And so they were trying to build more of a presence, and they were running quite a bit of marketing. And so, and Tech has his own label, like he's known as an independent. I was promoting and passing out flyers to them. And then, when I was 18, I started, doing something where I was like getting, they would send me little small checks and stuff for doing it. But again, it was one of those things. I just did it more out of passion. And then I got the call, was like, hey, and they had a box truck at the time, and they're like, um, and it's interesting how the conversation went because they had a gentleman that was handling their marketing at the time. And I was like, yeah, man, like I'm gonna, and this is before I'm 21, right? So I'm like, hey,
Okay.
21, I'm going to drive trucks, right? Because I had this
Okay.
passion for trucking, which went back to when I was a kid. And so I knew I
Okay.
wanted to go into trucking. And I was doing music promotion as like more of a hobby, really something I like doing. But I had a passion. So I had a passion for trucking, I had a passion for music. And then the gentleman at that time, he was the marketing director for the label at that time. He was like, "Oh, you drive trucks?" And I'm like, "Yeah." And I was promoting Tech Nine's music, and I was actually driving. There's a company called Boar's Head, like they're like the Boar's Head meats in stores. I was driving for Boar's Head, a box truck doing local deliveries in
Right.
Texas. And he was like, you know what, man, let me talk to and Travis O'Gwen was he's the Tech's manager and business partner. He's like, let me talk to Travis. And then I get a call from Travis, and Travis is like, hey, would you we got this box truck, would you go drive for it on the tour? And of course for me, I was like, well, this is awesome. I get to do what I like doing.
Right.
I'm going to go towards trucking. And so, yeah. And then that ultimately led to me, drove that box truck a couple times on tours, got my CDL, but it didn't, there was at the time, my tenure at the label wasn't all driving because Travis saw there was some other qualities that I had, which was like kind of a salesmanship thing where he had me like running merch. I
Okay.
tour managed some smaller tours, so I got and I always wanted to have like kind of more knowledge of other facets of that side. So it's interesting when I go on a tour now or when I do a show now. I have insights or I have knowledge on production. I have knowledge from tour
Sure.
managing. I've done merch. So I've done all these other positions. So when I'm on these tours, I'm just like, okay, I know how to communicate with the tour manager, production manager, stage manager, merch manager. Like I just, I understand what they do and what
Right.
workflow they have, and then how can we all come together and because like on the trucking side, you're handling every aspect, right? So it's different when you're on a tour and you're like, if you're a lighting guy on a tour, you're dealing with your world, you're in lighting world, right? But when you're the truck driver on that tour or a lead driver on that tour, you're dealing with all of their worlds because you could be hauling
Right.
lighting or you could be hauling merch or you could. And so if I feel like if you have a little bit of understanding of their world, I can jump behind a board, do some basic stuff. But yeah, on lighting, I can't run their board. But I know their board, what it looks like, and I know what type of cases and how it's going to be packaged up and how to properly secure it. So
Give me a sense of when that was. You said you were 16 when so how old are you now, Josh?
39, I'll be 40
39.
in February. So yeah,
Okay.
we're going back to the
20 years ago.
early
Yeah.
2000s. Yeah,
Right.
or
Right.
late 90s, early 2000s was about the around the time.
Yeah. Yeah.
And
Yeah.
and it started in Portland, Oregon when I
Yep.
started promoting for them, and then I moved down to Texas, and I
Right.
was in Austin, Texas back when they offered me my first tour that I did for them. I think this is around, and that's the thing, like going back in memory, I think around '06, maybe '06, '07, somewhere around that
Okay.
range is when I went and did my first tour with them.
I think it was, a decade or so after all that, that you started the business here. Did you get into a tractor trailer and all that before that and drive for anyone, I guess?
When I left the label, it was interesting because I had, I'd been with that label for a long time, and
Okay.
especially at that age, because I'm like,
Yeah.
whoa, most of my adult life has been with this record label, right?
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
it was scary kind of stepping out because it was one of those things where on one hand it was a little scary stepping out, but on the other hand, I was also like, I reached pretty much the highest position I was going to get there, right?
Right.
I for what I was doing, I mean, there wasn't like much more growth at
Yeah.
that label. And but it was like these guys were like my family, this was like,
Yeah.
these, I mean, and tour brothers. I'd done a lot of tours with them. And but so I stepped out and I went to work for a mega carrier, did that for a year.
Okay.
Wanted to just kind of and it's funny because that mega carrier was like, hey, you got this background in touring. And I was hauling freight because I wanted to get more experience into going to different places outside of just entertainment. And they had an entertainment division. So they ended up putting
Hmm.
me on it towards the end of, but again, it was one of those things was like, I'm just wanting to. So
Right.
I bounced around, when I say bounce around, not like, not like less than a year. I did a year with them, and then so was hauling freight. Then I moved out to Seattle area, and then I was hauling reefer for a while on a refrigerated division for another big carrier. And then I went and did tanker for a bit to get a taste of something different. I just wanted to try different, get
Right.
some more experience on outside of just going into venues, right? Because I'd
Right.
been to a lot of venues. I'd driven a tractor trailer in quite a few venues, New York City, San Diego, San Francisco, whatever, And
Sure.
so once I gained that experience, then it was like, okay, now, I'm going to buy a truck. Uh, and, I bought a used truck from a pretty popular used truck dealer. And, even paid I had great credit, but paid a higher interest rate because it was, you know, no commercial history. Right. Then started my LLC and, out of state of Washington, started that. And then I was like, you know what? That's when I actually leased on to a big carrier that he's leases on owner operators, very well known one. I wasn't there long. Um, I leased on because I just wanted to, before the time came to get my authority, I just wanted to get what I felt like was as much experience as I could. And when leasing onto that big carrier, that well-known name that anyone would know, I was like, okay, I'm definitely not going to grow here either, right? I just got to go out and do this myself. And so that's when I leased on, got my own authority, got my authority in 2018, and I leased on my first guy I leased on in 2019. And when I started, I didn't start it to grow some trucking company. I just wanted
Yeah.
to do what I love doing and do it on my own. But then I was like, I saw the way other people were getting treated from a lot, and I'm not out here like there's a lot of great carriers out there, but there's also a lot of ones where it's like, you know what, like I lease on guys that I get to know, um, and and it's one of those
Right.
things where I lease on people in general I get to know. There's obviously putting this out there, male, female, like anyone's open and any of
Right.
any, but we are in a predominantly, most of the people I know
Yeah.
that drive are male. But yeah, so I leased on first owner operator, and it just came down to like we had a conversation and I was telling him, I said, like let's just do this, right? Because you're going to be in a situation where, I trust you, trust me, and
Right.
you're gonna get more piece of the pie because I'm not trying to make millions of dollars just off of guys leads on, right? So I don't
Right.
have that mentality. And so, and then it just kept going from there. And then more, people, and a couple people have, some people have left. One of the drivers passed away, and that was really hard.
Oh, wow.
Really hard. He passed away at home, which was, definitely just like thinking back on it. It's like, oh man, he had a family, but he was with his family. And it's one of those things, like for a lot of drivers, it's like, oh man, you always think like, if it's going to happen, because we're all leaving at some point. It's,
right.
Definitely who wants to be out there in a cab, in a truck,
Right.
And then we had, another gentleman that retired. He's done. Doesn't even drive anymore, which is great too, because it's one of those things where it's like, for me, it was like, well, if you're gonna step out, I try to create this atmosphere. It's like you can go where you want to go and step out where you want to step out, but it's one of those things where it's like, even for that gentleman, he was like, yeah, I'm not gonna, go anywhere else. And outside of being leased on, really the only step beyond this would be getting your own authority, which we did have another gentleman that, I actually want to say this quickly. There was a gentleman that he went and got his own authority at the beginning of this year. He was leased on for 2 years. And at the end of around this time last year, October, November, he said, hey, I'm thinking about getting my own authority. And for some reason, he thought I was going to be like upset or something as he's leaving. Right. I don't expect anyone that leases on. I really don't expect this to be the end of the road for them. It's kind of like, hey, you're going to grow and go different areas. And so I said, that's awesome. And I will help you and I'll walk you through the whole process. And so he's got his own authority now, and, things are going good for him. He didn't want to be on tour, and all that. So he's got a direct customer now where he lives out in Nebraska, and he's able to be home every weekend. And even in this market, he's doing well. So,
a lot of people always say, like, hey, this is the perfect time to start, because if you can make it now, you're gonna be doing really well if things heat up. Looks good out there.
Mm-hmm.
The owner operators that are leased to you, when you guys aren't like on a tour, I suspect you're hauling freight with brokers, or what? What are you doing?
It's a mix. We do have some direct customers. When we're not on tours, there's actually a lot of I got 2 guys right now that are at Javits Center in New York, and it's a corporate event. So there's a lot of corporate events, there's trade shows, even stuff like like the Mid America Truck Show. Everything's hauled in and hauled out of there, and so we do a lot of those. It's a pretty small percentage of freight, but during COVID, it was 100% freight, right? So during in fact, I had a corporate. It was production, but it was corporate, and we were on our way. I was on my way over to California, and California, it was going to Anaheim Convention Center, and that was one of at the beginning of COVID, that was one of the early places that was like, we're shutting down, right? And so I literally had to turn around. I left Missouri, and I started heading out there, and I had to turn around and go right back to go return the gear, and then hauled nothing but freight. Ideally, load boards are really kind of more set up for, like supplemental. But I've lived 100% on the spot market before, so I can actually, I can understand both sides. But yeah, for us,
it can be done, but it's not easy.
If you do it, you got to play that game. You got to do that strategy. You got to play that game, and you got to move like that. And yeah, you really have to be willing to go anywhere. You can't just be like, if you just want to run, a trifecta or an A and B. If you want to go to A and then if you want to go to B and then back to A, that's a rough.
Load board's not gonna work for you all the time.
Really rough, yeah. But if you're just
willing to go anywhere,
let's go, and play that game, post your truck, watching the hot market map and all that. You can do well. But if and I know guys are still playing that game. I know guys that play that game, and I know some that play it very well. But they're flexible. I don't care where they go, and you got to stay out 3-4 weeks, because if you don't stay out 3-4 weeks, you're making the money to really. You got to position into those markets where it's good.
Do your guys leased on? Do they get out and book their own loads and stuff when you're not involved in a tour, or how does that work? Do you dispatch help them dispatch themselves, or what?
They have both options. I got a gentleman that doesn't really know how to work that board too well, and he's just like, Josh, he tells me, he's like, man, look, I trust you. You know what kind of stuff, this kind of stuff I'll run. And so, I leave it open. There's definitely gonna be a lot of freedom because I don't micromanage my guys. I'll look to see where they're at, whatever. I'm always there. Like we're leaving on a cruise. And we're flying Saturday and we're gonna be on this cruise. Beautiful thing of WhatsApp, because I pay for the internet on the cruise ship I'm on. They have Starlink, and we are working the entire. This doesn't shut off. I got guys that are still out, and I got 2 that are on tour, and 2 that are not on tour that are just running one-offs right now. And so it's one of those things where it's like I tell them, hey, you can get a hold of me on WhatsApp. Like you can call me on WhatsApp, you can message me on WhatsApp, and can't call me on my voice, can't call me on a regular phone, but so we got and I actually 2 of them are coming off tour December 2nd, and we get back December 2nd. But we got to, book stuff for them in advance. So I'll be booking loads, helping them book loads like while we're on the cruise ship, So think about 20 years ago, and they had like payphones and stuff, like, and then load board was like on a analog TV, I remember those days,
Our talk then turned to another area that's evolved substantially over the time Rickards has been around trucking, the Bedrock truck equipment itself, of course. He detailed the truck that got him started on his ownership journey.
So that truck was actually a 2014 Mac, and I bought it in 2018. And then it actually, when I bought a brand new Freightliner. It was a 2020 Cascadia that I bought at September 2019, and I bought it in a down market. So I got, I was down market and got a good price on it. So the gentleman that came on, that first gentleman at least on, I lease purchased him that truck. And then when he retired out, he got out of driving. I actually bought the truck back from him and then lease purchased it to a gentleman it's on now. We ran that truck we literally ran that truck till it was like done, right? And then and we weren't going to in-frame it. We ran it till the motor was done, and then I put that gentleman that I lease purchased that truck and put him he's in a 2020 International. And so I'm actually today I'm sitting down with the salesman at 3:00, and we're gonna I'm specking out a brand new 2026 Western Star. That's what I'm looking.
Okay.
I stick with Daimler. What's interesting is my brothers, one of them actually does cybersecurity for Amazon Web Services, and then the other, he does like coding. He's an engineer and all that, and a lot of data. And he used to work for Daimler Trucks in North America. So he was he like pioneered this one program that they did. I would probably butcher it if I went to like the full details on it, but it's like something along the lines of some like the data that the computer send from the truck sends back, and like compiling that data and then getting it to like mega fleets, like your Walmart and Schneider's and stuff like that. My brother would he would go to Walmart's headquarters and sit down with them and go, okay, here's like the data, and like helping them better spec their trucks, helping, because they're always seeking efficiency. So that was one thing for me with Daimler. And then the other thing is there's a Freightliner shop that's like not even 10 minutes from my house. And so based on that, I'm like, I'm kind of stuck in that Daimler network there. But, we're not like, when you're leasing on owner operators, it would be nice because a lot of the big touring fleets do run the same equipment, right? They'll have the same color and all the trucks look uniform. And that's nice. I'm actually also a believer in that too. But we got gentleman just came on. He's got a W900. Another gentleman's coming on. He's got a W900. Now on the record, my favorite of the long hood trucks is the W9. Peterbilt 389, beautiful truck too. Those are the truckers' trucks. Don't get me wrong. But we go to a lot of tight places, and for me, I'm
Yep.
like, I like the fuel efficiency, and I'm not afraid of the new electronics, so I'm cool with having all the new electronics and having all of that. I'm in that generation. I'm not, because I noticed a lot of drivers in their 50s and 60s. Hey, I don't blame them. They're like, man, put me in a pre-emission truck and let's roll.
Yeah.
So, and I can understand that. But yeah, so started with that used 2014. Um, and then but now, yeah, for me, all the truck purchases are Daimler. I had a Cascadia since 2019, so I was like, you know what, why get another Cascadia? I'll get a Western Star. Let me switch it up a little bit, but still stay in that Daimler, realm.
Do you run team? Do you have to run team some? Sounds like you do, right?
Yeah, actually, there's some team runs coming up that the
Okay.
solution we do right now is we just have to like fly a guy out. I'm actually
Mhm.
looking at on for the entertainment side. There's some people that they're like independent contractors, and you just you do a DQ file
Yeah.
with them, so you do the drug test and basically onboard them. But you just fly them out and hire them to do a drive, do a team drive.
Yeah.
I'm actually
Temporary.
looking into doing that, and you bring them on. I don't bring on any company drivers. And that's the thing too, is like the regulation landscape. I mean, my company is out of
Yeah.
Washington State, and being out of Washington State, I can even, anybody could say this on the record. It's like one of those things where it's like it's much better to have owner operators and like true independent contractors. And to
Yeah.
have a true independent contractor, they can turn down anything.
Yeah.
You definitely gotta stay on top of regulation. And that doesn't matter if you're in entertainment
Yeah.
or you're in freight. And we do everything. I mean, we are by the book. So
Yeah.
that I don't bring on any pre-emission trucks. I don't have I don't have a prejudice towards anyone that's in a pre-emission truck, but you got to run ELD, because
Yeah.
I don't want any questions of compliance. I don't want
Yeah.
anything, like I like that. Hey, you can track, so you have locations, and then you also
Yep.
have, the ELD, and and even the ELDs I use are fully, like, I use ELDs that are not at risk of FMCSA taking them down. I've been using Omnitrax, which is owned by Solera now, and I've been
Right.
using it
Right.
for a long time. I have one unit that's Motive, and we're up in the air on whether or not to make the switch to Motive. I see Motive is definitely in major growth mode right now. So, and they have been since they were even Keep Trucking. But yeah.
Right.
So we're we're running two at the moment, which is a lot for me, because I'm like, that pulls some of my comfort zone. I'm so used to Omnitrax.
Right.
But both those units are, they're so compliant. It's not even funny. Like they're not at risk of being revoked. Going back on my story, during that time where was hauling before I started my company, one of the guys that's leased on now that I lease purchased to, I used to work with him at that company. So I've known him for over 10 years. I've known him since about 2014, 2015. And so there's another gentleman I know. Lease purchasing for me is a good way to help get someone into being an owner operator and learn how to be an owner operator. And then they can go buy their own trucks from there. Whereas, some fleets put lease purchasing as a way, it's just it's a revenue generating model for them, and it's sad that lease purchase I feel like the way that I did lease purchase, not, toot my horn or anything, but it's just one of those things where, like, I feel like that is really the way the lease purchase should be. It's like, hey, here's a way to get into being an owner operator. Whereas, oh my goodness, that lease purchase is, there's a lot of talk, a lot of regulation talk, and it's getting the eyes of the regulators where it's like, yo, this is being abused to the point where, regulators are having this. I think they're going to fully have to step in on it, because it's gotten out of hand.
I mean, what do you do? What's the secret there? You feel like just simplicity, I guess, clear terms.
Transparency.
Yeah.
Transparency. Got to be. So like my guys get the fuel reports that I get from my fuel card provider. So they get so there's no, because man, the things that companies do to cheat people is insane. They cheat people by either telling them that, oh, well, here's this discount, and then they'll pocket a spread between the actual discount and what they charge their owner operator. They'll doctor up rate cons. I will send my guys screenshots of emails with a customer to the point where we're discussing the money, so they know, hey, this is, I don't mind showing them remittance. If they want to see remittance, I'll show them remittance, because I have a lease agreement with them. I have a contract with them, and it's like, here's our percentage, and it's based on this. And at any time you can request, or most times I just present it. So I think transparency, like simplicity, is important. I think simplicity is definitely important for a smaller fleet, because when you're looking at a smaller fleet, for anyone that's a prospective person that's interested in leasing on, they expect simplicity. It's kind of like, okay, I'm not going to some corporate conglomerate here. I'm expecting things to be simple, but then also transparency. And with transparency, that's where you build trust. So basically, like, we build relations with our drivers. Like, one of the guys was at my wedding. All were invited, but it's who could make it and stuff, but it's one of those things where it's like, it really is like a fan. And that's another thing for small fleets is, and why people will prefer them. It is more of a family atmosphere, because it's family owned, but it's ran like a family, so like, right. Like I really go to bat for these guys, it's and I tell them, I'm like, I'm like your lawyer in a sense. Like, I'm representing you, like, I got your back. We can be real honest with each other, because we're that's the thing. Like, you hear us a lot, life is short. We're doing life together. It's like, life is too short for all that the BS and chaos. Like, we ain't got no time for that.
Here's a big thanks to Rickards for his time, and a wish for continued success through the new year. That's Josh Rickards, owner of Rickards Transportation Services. Find links to his company website and more in the post that houses this podcast for January 6, 2025 at overdriveonline.com/overdrive-radio, or in the show notes, wherever you're listening. Overdrive Radio is on Spotify and SoundCloud, Apple Podcasts, and YouTube, Overdrive's Facebook page, and any listening platform, really. Leave us a review there if you're enjoying these, and here's a big thanks in advance for it. Overdrive Radio is a production of Overdrive, the voice of the American trucker. It's edited and produced by me, Todd Dills, with the acoustic guitar and other support of trucker-songwriter Long Haul Paul Marhofer. The theme is Legend of the Snake Man by Marhofer, featuring guitar work of Travis, the Snake Man himself, Whammock, Terry Two Socks Richardson on bass, keys by Tishomingo Jim Whitehead, and on drums, Andrew Marshall. The podcast is backed up further by Overdrive's own social media coordinator, Jasmine Campbell, news editor Matt Cole, executive editor Alex Lockey, and video editors Lawson Rudisell and Andrew Glenn. We'll see you next time.